I think you ought to be like really, really grateful. And I said, well, I am really, really grateful. So then he reaches over and he starts to fondle my knee. And you see, the thing for me is I'm Irish, but I'm not a Catholic. I was brought up in the Catholic, or in the Presbyterian tradition. So until that time in my life, I'd never actually met a real homosexual. It took me a minute or two to realize what was going on. So I did what I could. I kind of shoved myself over as close as I could to the door and tried to, repulse him as he was repulsing me. Then this gets even worse. He's driving along. He got all surly for a while, and the next thing, I couldn't help but notice that he had taken his staff of life from his pants and was doing what we would nowadays call multitasking. This was very, very disturbing on a number of levels, because the Ford Escort RS2000 was a rally car. It was an extremely fast car. He was driving fast, and I didn't know if he could handle himself and the car at the same time. But the other problem was I don't want to watch him, of course, but on the other hand, I did want to keep an eye on him just in case he tried to attack me or something. So I was stuck with it, saying, what am I going to do here? But lucky enough, I was saved. He shot into a lay-by and stopped. Slammed on the brakes, the car skidded to a halt, and he didn't look at me, he just sat there holding on to the wheel, looking out the window, and he says, "Get out. Get the fuck out of my car. Get out of my fucking car." And I thought, well, he didn't need to tell me twice. Obviously he didn't know that, but I was at it. And the car shut off, roared away with my rucksack in the back seat. In his book, Ken said there would be bad days. But I hadn't expected it in the first half day that I was on. So I can tell you I was a bit shook up, as you'd imagine. So I took a while to compose myself, and then I started thinking, well, what am I going to do now? And then I took stock. I had the clothes I stood in still. I had my camera still, which was hanging around my neck. That was a brand new Olympus OM10, which I bought. It was my dream camera. So I still had it. And most important of all, I had the money belt around my waist under my shirt, and it had my passport and money and traveler's checks and all the important stuff. So I decided, okay, Ken said some people would go home at this stage, but I'm going to push on, go on with my trip. So it took a day or two, but I finally ended up in Paris. And I was very, very excited to be in Paris, even though I will say the weather hadn't got much better. It was still a bit miserly and dirty weather. But Paris, the gastronomic capital of the world, and I was determined in Paris to splurge, go to a proper French restaurant, and try the famous, real French cuisine. So I picked a random bistro, looked okay, went in, sat down. The waiter appeared, or garçon, that's what they call it in French, garçon. He came and he set the menu in front of me. I picked it up. Well, I have to be honest, I didn't really pay much attention in my French classes, so I had a bit of trouble deciphering it. In fact, I couldn't. But I thought, well, I'll choose it based on the price. But I didn't pay much attention in my math class either, so it took me a while to figure out the exchange rates. And when I did, I was absolutely gobsmacked. What? This is incredibly expensive, way beyond my budget. So I had to look down very carefully and choose 3 items that were the cheapest I could find. And I also wanted to try some French wine, so I just, what the hell, I bought a glass of wine. Anyway, I sat a while later, the guy came out, he brought out a plate, set it in front of me. There on the plate, there was a boiled potato, a small heap of green peas, and a sausage. And I thought, oh man, I could have got this in Ireland. I've got to make the best of a bad job. So I ate it, and then I drank the wine. But, being 18 or 19, I wanted to get a bit sophisticated, so on the way out I asked the waiter, what's the wine? And it's very good. Vino di Nera. So embarrassed, I paid about half a week's budget, went out and thought, Paris really sucks, I'm getting out of here. So I went to the station, I'm going to go to Greece. I went to the wrong station, there was no train to Greece. But Ken in his book said, no problem. When you're on the road, a destination is not important. There was no train to Greece, but there was one down to Nice. And Nice sounds like Greece, Nice. So I'll go to Nice. It sounds alright. Nice is going to be nice. It's going to be nice in Nice. So, I've kind of beaten that to death. Anyway, I got on the train, went to Nice, where all the rich people hang out, and I went down to the beach. I thought I'm going to work on my tan. But I'm Irish. So I landed on the beach. It was not really a beach, more like a rocky shoreline at Nice. And I laid my shirt down on the rocks and sat down. And was just kind of sitting there. And then this woman came along, and she took the space beside me. Probably about, I don't know, mid-20s or so. And she's a pretty good-looking woman. And I was trying not to stare at her, but it was difficult because she took off her top. And then, lo and behold, she took off her bottom as well. She was completely naked, and she lay down on her back. She was sunning herself. And there I was, sitting about a metre and a half away. I was absolutely terrified of her. Because I had never seen a woman like this before outside the pages of Playboy or Penthouse or something. And I, like, taking the old nonchalant glance and sitting there. So I was torn between, you know, fear and wanting to do something about this situation. And I got to thinking, well, you know, maybe, well, I determined to strike up a conversation with her. I was thinking maybe she needed a bit of lotion rubbed on her back or something. So it was a great chance. So I took all the courage I had, and I leaned over and I said, bonjour. She said, bonjour. And that was the conversation, really. It was finished. She didn't say anything more. So I sat there a bit longer, and then I said, au revoir. This time she didn't even deign to reply. So I was extremely embarrassed, but that isn't why I was red. I was fried, absolutely fried. The weather was now what it should be. It was blisteringly hot. And I'd been sitting out on the beach for like an hour when, 5 minutes is a bit too long for me. And I got up, that night I was in agony, pumping out the heat like a power station. And I couldn't move, I couldn't have my shirt even touch my skin. So I got on the train and headed down through what was still Yugoslavia at the time. And the pain had now turned into like an intolerable itch, so I was just scratching all the time. There were no seats available, so I found myself sitting on the floor outside the lavatory door with about 5 Slavic guys coming back from having worked in Germany. And they had a huge big flagon of red wine. It wasn't a bottle, it was like a big, one of those big round things with a lug on the top, and they hold it like that. And drink it this way. So they very kindly shared it with me, and they were passing me around and drinking it. Then they had a couple of bottles of Slivovitch, and we drank that as well. And then I fell into really drunken slumber. And I woke up sometime later, and my companions were gone, and so was my camera. The Olympus OM10. Got it. I went down to, I made it down to Athens, and Ken, he recommended in Athens sleeping on the roof of a hotel to save a bit of cash. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So I found a roof, I got up there, I met this couple, and they very kindly shared their lunch with me, which was, I always remember this for some reason, it was bread, olives, and wine. And they said it was the peasant food of their country. But those two, they were real travelers. They'd been to Papua New Guinea and Indonesia and Malaysia, and everyone, they were talking to me about these places. And I was sitting there like scratching and pulling lumps of skin off myself and thinking, this seemed like such a good idea at the time. But this trip hasn't really worked out like I expected. I was variously attacked by a Scottish pervert, ripped off by a French restaurant, disrespected by a naked woman in Nice. Burnt. The worst. Yeah. That's happened a lot since then, but burnt. Burnt to a cinder and finally robbed on the train down through Yugoslavia. You'd really, really need to have like a full frontal lobotomy to do anything like that again. But listening to my two new companions, I could feel a little idea was just sprouting and starting to grow. Thank you.